Alright, it's the KwinnPop podcast. I'm Peter W. Dawson.
I'm James Bullock.
And we're here to talk about television and movies. No video games this week, but small spoiler, next week we're going to be talking about E3, so you can imagine there'll probably be a lot more video games on that one.
Yeah,
In the meantime, though, yeah, it's going to be crazy. But in the meantime, how you doing, James?
Oh, I'm doing pretty well, Peter, because you know what? I have been practicing my crane kick like never before.
But how merciful are you?
No mercy. No mercy for any man.
Good man. Now you understand. And with that, you will truly be victorious. You just need to hit the EMP's weak spot.
But what about if they have a giant tail?
You know what? Tails don't matter. Whales have been trying to tell us that for years. Now it's about time we listened.
Oh.
Anyway, so we're going to talk about the YouTube Red series. Yeah, we haven't done. I don't think we've done a YouTube Red.
We've never done
yet.
a YouTube Red series because
yeah,
I don't know if there's ever been actually one that's been decent enough to cover.
Not really. Most of the ones I've seen have been actually just movies, and the movies haven't been terribly great. I mean, I'm a Rooster Teeth fanboy, but I'll be the first to tell you that Laser Team isn't very good. There's some good jokes in there, but I'm just saying it isn't worth it. But yeah, no, we're going to talk about Cobra Kai, which is the sequel to pretty much at least the original trilogy of Karate Kid movies.
Right.
I don't know if they're going to actually mention the next Karate Kid.
Yeah, I think it's just sticking to the LaRusso arc.
Yeah, and they're not gonna tie in the reboot with Jackie Chan and Jits. But I actually really like that one, but of course they call it Karate Kid, and then he doesn't learn karate.
No, could you imagine when they did Cobra Kai? You find out about it. It's based off the reboot.
It wouldn't make any sense. It's like why is Jackie Chan suddenly here? He had no reason to be here. Yeah, so it actually stars both Ralph Macchio and William Zabka.
Yeah.
I just know him better as Billy Zabka.
Yeah. People have to know that, of course, this happens. Not only is it a sequel to a follow-up to the Karate Kid films, but they actually do it in a way that it's actually modern day. It's 30 years later, and we're catching up to a pair of our favorite characters in movie history.
Oh, yeah, Johnny Lawrence is the classic 80s villain.
The whole thing about Karate Kid, and not to get off on a tangent, but I didn't experience the Karate Kid until like my teens. And it was one of those things, like when I first watched it, it was like, okay, this is fun, but it really wasn't that big of a deal to me. You know how we angsty teens were. but then as I got older and was watching more 80s movies, I was like, Karate Kid did this better. Karate Kid did this better. And then it hit me. Like, Karate Kid is the ultimate 80s trope movie of a teenage guy coming into his own, coming of age tale of a teenage person. And they do everything right when it comes to that.
Pretty much. I mean, like, there's a few things that are maybe not so great, but I love how they portray the kid, and, and of course, he can seem a little selfish by saying, it wasn't fair that he wasn't consulted, but I mean, he is older to the point where, if he's going to be a man, it feels like he should have some respect, and of course, there's the thing, it's like, once you get to a certain age, you can't just go tell an adult, you kind of got to stand up for yourself.
Yeah, you got to do something.
Yeah. I mean, it's one of those difficult things, and they did a pretty good job demonstrating the lessons that Miyagi was teaching Daniel were actually, somehow useful. Which, of course, is a classic thing you see referenced a lot in other tropes. Like, I mean, even as most recently as My Hero Academia.
Yeah.
And they had the protagonist of that clean up a junkyard to make himself strong enough to handle his new powers.
Exactly.
So, I mean, this is a trope that will exist forever, and it's a great one.
Yeah, very much so, is it? Because it's always that, and the same thing like we talked about it in the past, like with Star Wars. It's just always these little tropes of identifying minor tasks or objectives, and come to find out, it's got a greater meaning. And I love the fact that that plays a big role in not only the Karate Kid movies, but of course in Cobra Kai.
I know it's Cobra Kai is one of the best reasons for why you can do a sequel series so many years later and still have something meaningful to say. And I mean, we've talked about this type of thing before because, like, we mentioned Blade Runner 2049 being a phenomenal sequel.
Mm-hmm.
This is like that, but in series form.
Exactly. It's only 10 episodes. Each episode's barely 30 minutes. There's a couple of ones that's like on the lower end of 20. But it is an incredible... It somehow it captures the same essence of the original movies, yet it features our main characters in their middle-aged years. And one is living, in the case of Daniel LaRusso, who was, of course, the Karate Kid, kind of living it up now. And poor Johnny, that crane kick messed him up good.
It was an illegal kick.
That illegal kick messed him up good.
I always thought Billy Zabka was an underrated actor because I mean he's known for playing villains and a lot of things, right? And he kind of, but oh my god, like even like I said, I'm a fan of his work. Even for me, this was a revelation.
Oh my goodness, yes.
Holy heck! So, okay, we should probably get into the premise a bit more here.
Yeah.
Just so...
Because we're already gushing about it, so you should know something. This is a really good show.
Yeah, we should talk about the plot a bit, because it's really brilliant what they do, because it starts out focusing on Johnny Lawrence,
right?
The villain from the first one. I believe he shows up briefly in 2 and 3.
Yes, yeah.
No, just in 2.
Yeah,
just in 2.
He's a big part. It's cameo.
Yeah. And, he's the bully that Daniel LaRusso, Ralph Macchio's character, overcame in the first movie. And of course, not only that, but Johnny's girlfriend ended up falling for Daniel, so there was that conflict as well, because, you know, it's very rarely simple.
But they were on a break.
Yeah.
That old trope. Like I said, so many of those tropes are involved in the original Karate Kid premise.
They do it so well, though.
But like I said, they do it all. Every time I look at an 80s movie and I see these tropes that are similar to the Karate Kid movies, I say the Karate Kid did them better, because they did.
For the most part, pretty much. I mean, there's a few things that maybe were better done by later movies or earlier movies, but in general, like, yeah, it's a very good example. Especially with Pat Morita.
Yeah.
I love the episode of Community where they rip into the idea that Daniel's the important character is like Mr. Miyagi, like he goes on this big rant about how important Pat Morita's performance is, and it's like, and then he goes, Ralph Macchio showed up. Which is harsh, because I really thought Ralph Macchio did a good job in Karate Kid.
He did a good job there, and he did a very good job here.
Yeah, okay. So we're going to actually talk about the plot now.
Let's get back to it. So Johnny is not living up the life like Daniel.
He is a early 50s burnout who is constantly thinking about his quote-unquote glory days. And, like...
Oh, man.
Because it is legitimately 34 years later. So Johnny is somewhere between 52 and 54 in this.
Yes,
which
exactly.
Is very close to Billy Zabka's own age, because I think he's 52, so it's got to be right in it.
Yeah, I think they're going the exact parallel here.
Yeah, and Machio's 56, so I mean...
Yeah.
You know, they're pretty much right around the ages they're supposed to be, so nothing weird with that. And he is just a wreck, and like I always love when he talks about the tournament, he immediately says it was an illegal kick.
Yeah,
like, it's a reflex he's developed. Like it's clearly, he's clearly this broken, drunken man who just is incredibly pathetic.
Yes, and I mean the sad part about it, it's not like he's just a bum, because we actually see early part of the series that he's trying to be a construction worker. He's trying to do like little jobs here and there. But like you said, his attitude, poor thing, just being a burnout.
Yeah.
It's just rub people the wrong way anytime he goes around anything for long periods of time.
Yeah, like, so he's like a beautiful drifter, except he's not even that beautiful anymore.
Yeah.
He's still got the blonde hair, but he's now just kind of...
But it's just terrible looking. He looks a mess. He really does.
Oh, absolutely.
And, like, it was fine being a construction worker and looking a mess, but then, like, him trying to just be a normal person, especially a scene later on in the movie... I keep saying movie because it feels so good. It's so good cinematically that it could be a movie. It's that good cinematically.
Yeah.
But later on in the season, where you have to kind of clean him up a little bit, and it's just hilarious seeing him like that.
So what happened? Yeah, but basically what happens is he rediscovers his love for karate after after one of my favorite sequences, because he saves a kid who's gonna get beat up.
Yes.
And then gets arrested for doing it.
Yes.
Because it's a very badass moment, and then reality ensues.
Yeah, because I mean he's beating up teenagers. That's
yeah.
the thing.
I know.
He's a grown man beating up teenagers. Of course they're going to think that he's in the wrong here.
Oh yeah.
And even him being in the right is still wrong.
Yeah, I know. This is because that's kind of the theme of the series. Because you want him to beat up those teens because they're terrible.
Because they're terrible people.
If nothing else, it's a boy named Kyler. Isn't that the name of one of them?
Oh man,
I'm sorry, people named Kyler, but just
no. I mean, I love the interaction between Kyler and Daniel Russo's character at one point of the series.
Oh yeah, well, there's so much great stuff that happens during this. But yeah, so he beats the heck out of them. He goes through it. He gets money from his stepdad. Kudos on the stepdad for still bothering with a 50-something-year-old stepson.
Yeah. He just still feels obligated to help him.
Yeah. I mean, he basically says, you know what, this is the last time. But I'm like,
well,
he is like 54. I mean,
yeah, and the stepdad knows he doesn't have much longer to live himself. So
yeah,
I love the interaction between the stepdad and his caretaker too. As minor as that was hilarious.
Oh no, it's great. And then so he ends up getting them. He uses the money to revive Cobra Kai.
Yes, he buys a little dojo. This is a little shop that he barely can afford in a rundown strip mall, and he opens up the doors for Cobra Kai to return to the valley.
Yep, it's a dojo where there's no mercy.
Yeah,
because that was kind of the mentality. Like, for those who aren't familiar with the original film, that was the whole mentality. It's like, no mercy, that type of thing. Strike fast, no mercy.
Yeah, Cobra Kai. It's very which is one thing that I love the fact that they touch on, is the fact that the times have changed completely in terms of what is appropriate and what isn't, what is PC and what isn't.
Yep.
And poor Johnny has to deal with it so much.
Oh yeah, because he's very much the bitter old man who's just like, your generation or a bunch of soft. Because doesn't he drop? I don't want to repeat some of the stuff he drops, but it's totally understandable why his character would say what he says.
Yes, and thankfully his students eventually they try to enlighten him. That's not good to say, and he tries to adjust a little bit, but it's still in the root of him is the same person that was, 30 years ago.
Yeah.
Just because that was the way he was taught himself.
Yep. Exactly. Like he is for his part teaching what he learned.
Right.
And of course he has the mentality that, you know what, life's not fair, which he does kind of have a point.
Oh yeah, he definitely instills that in the students too. I love that.
Yeah. Well, because this is kind of one of the key points of the series. Is like everyone always has at least something of a point.
Mm-hmm.
The actions are almost never entirely understandable.
Right.
But everyone, like both Johnny and later Daniel, as he gets involved with him even more, because the rivalry comes back. Does it come back.
Yeah. Once they see each other, it's just, you can feel the tension. It's amazing how much tension there is. And just like you said, I love the fact they blur the line of what is a good guy and a bad guy.
It's
like you said, everybody has their own side of the story. It's two sides to every story, and they definitely exemplify that with both characters, especially during the interactions.
Yeah. This is what makes the series work. I mean, if there's any weakness, it's some of the kid characters are either too annoying, not quite up to the snuff with some of their scenes or whatever like that. But I mean, that's the only real deficiency I can think of.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like Daniel's son is just a overweight gamer that doesn't see the point of doing anything in life besides playing his PS Vita, and somehow has just an easy access to his parents' credit card. Oh, I wanted to slap that kid. I'm sorry, but I just wanted to hit that kid so badly.
Yeah, he wasn't.
He was terrible.
Samantha was worse.
And Amanda was just bland though.
No, I meant Samantha.
Oh, yeah.
The daughter.
Yeah, the daughter. Yeah, she was bland.
She starts out really bad before you start to get to know her.
Yeah.
Thankfully, she gets a lot.
She's stereotypical girl that wants to be accepted.
Yeah, and it's not very compelling at first.
No, not at all. And then you throw Kyler in the middle of it all, and it just gets worse.
Kyler's the worst. Kyler is like, okay, I'm sorry people name Kyler, but the character in the show is just like the personification of anything I would probably hate.
Yeah, if that's the name, if you said Kyler, like his attitude is exactly what you would expect.
He's everything that that society has basically taught us to think about someone with that name, which is a shame, because that is not fair to good people named Kyler. No. So again, I'm sorry people named Kyler, but unfortunately they let you down.
Yeah, they really did. They really, really did with this one.
Yeah.
You gotta think that maybe somebody that wrote this like hates the name Kyler, and that was exactly why they did it.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
They probably just thought about a more traditional name, and then they took it to one of the modern twists.
Right. Like, what name do you like? Oh yeah, you said like, okay, what do you think of Kyle? Do you really hate that name? No. What about Kyler? Yeah, I hate that name. I hate that anybody
or Tyler. But what about
yeah.
Like I get the feeling that's how the writers came up with his name.
Yeah.
And it shows.
It was just like freaking Poochie from The Simpsons. Like you're just saying it. You're describing exactly what you expect when you say the name, and then you add a little twist just to make him that much more of a douche.
Yeah. So ultimately, it's not just the fact that, because, Johnny not only has is his stepson or his son?
No, it's his son.
That, right, he's got a proper son that he's, not in the best place with, to put it lightly.
No. And the boy's mother's not doing him any favors either.
Right, yeah, what little we see of her, she's pretty terrible.
Yeah, she's a terrible person.
Yeah, meanwhile, Daniel's doing his best, and he and his wife tries to help him, moderate.
We gotta emphasize though, Daniel's he's a car. He actually has his own car business where he's selling cars for a living while getting over the fact that he is a karate champion.
Yeah, he loves using that as marketing.
Because everyone who comes as a customer gets a bonsai tree when they leave.
It was a really stupid gimmick, I would say, but you know what?
But you know what? I will say it led to one of my favorite non-pivotal plot points in the entire series for me, when he confronts his rival competitor in the car market business. That after he saw the gimmick, decides he's going to be a patriot, because of course you can't love karate and bonsai trees without not liking America. So Daniel, of course, confronts the guy. And I love the fact that Daniel throws a roundhouse kick to show that he's legitimately a karate champion. And the look of satisfaction on Daniel's face, like, yeah, I still got it, when he walks away. That's easily my favorite part of the whole season that wasn't a part of the big overall plot.
That's true. Yeah. That was a pretty great moment. Because Johnny obviously still has it, and then, later we see Daniel still has it too.
Yeah.
Unsurprisingly, a big thing happens where, was it Johnny's student and Daniel's daughter hit it off?
Yeah, and there's these real big parallels of their lives and actually playing out in both student and children and offspring. It left a lot of anticipation too, because you knew they had to interact eventually, and you didn't know exactly what would happen when they did.
Yeah, well, there's two episodes, because I think we've kind of gushed over the main things. There's two episodes I really want to highlight.
Okay.
And it's the fifth episode, which is the tribute to Pat Morita.
Okay, yeah. Oh man, that was incredible.
Right?
Oh yeah. Just not to spoil too much, but Daniel, of course, he's conflicted. He's kind of lost his way in terms of just the feeling of, like you said, him not falling for karate. He's not practicing. He's kind of become a little bit more angry in his older age, and not being able to handle situations in the way that Master Miyagi would have taught him. And him going to Master Miyagi's funeral, to his grave site, and having this conversation, and it was easily one of the most emotional, impactful moments to me of the whole season.
Oh, absolutely, and it's probably genuine, because it was probably some of Machio's real life emotions over the fact that Morita sadly passed away.
Right.
And he channeled that into Mr. Miyagi. So I mean, I totally believe those are genuine.
I completely agree. It was a great scene.
Yeah, I mean that. If there's one upside to great actors passing away, is like if you reference their old characters and have people who were close to them in film,
and
you
be
can
able to
usually
honor
get an
them.
amazing performance, which is, like I said, may not even be a performance, and like it really makes it a touching tribute. Like, I mean, I think some of the emotions, like Vin Diesel channeled when he was in Furious when he was talking about Furious 7 with Paul Walker, I think that helped make that scene feel genuine. And here with Macho talking about Pat Morita, it just touched me.
Yeah, it really did. It was a great scene. It was a great moment. I think it was like it was amazing because it was really a turning point in the character, which is amazing when you think about it. That Daniel LaRusso's character has another turning point, some 30-something years later in the series, but in reality, it's just a touching tribute, and shows you just how important Pat's character and his acting and everything that he did was so influential in the success of the Karate Kid franchise.
Yeah. Oh yeah, because I mean, Morita got nominated for God's sakes.
Oh, just great stuff.
And
it really was.
And he really was like, it really was. Yeah, I just loved it so much.
Yeah, I had to pull a quote from Jim Ross for WWF or WWE fame. Like, his character, the Mr. Miyagi character, was really the consciousness of the entire Karate Kid franchise.
Pretty much. Yeah. I mean, you had to try and channel that when you were doing any of the other ones. I mean, this is why it didn't really matter that Daniel wasn't in the next Karate Kid.
Right.
I mean, that movie still sucked, but they at least had some attempt at the soul. Maybe next season we'll see Hilary Swank come out. Come on. Or Elizabeth Shue.
Oh, man.
But, yeah, the other episode I wanted to mention real quick, because it's one of my favorites, is episode 9. Okay. Which is the one where they go for a drive.
I was thinking about that. I didn't want to spoil too much on that one. I definitely wanted... When I was getting ready for the show, I was really thinking about that one, because to me, that was the epitome of everything that is wrong with what happened between both of them. And it's something that always comes up in television shows and movies that really was just not only confronted here, but also was a big moment where it just happened all over again. And my main point is the fact that we've seen it so many times where people over-talk each other in television shows and movies. Nobody ever gets a chance to explain their side of the story. And we see this happening, and then you have a moment where they actually drop their guard, and you see them together explaining their side of the story to each other.
Yeah, it is very genuine, and I think, I don't want to get into what leads up to this or anything like that, but it's a very genuine moment, and it shows that even the most ridiculous of villains can be made more human if you had the chance to explore the character.
Right.
And because I mean, one of the big critiques, of course, is the bullies are pretty stereotypical in Karate Kid, and they are.
And they are here too. It's funny because they are here.
Ultimately,
too.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, the ones, but you get to see a deeper psychological, and it's one of the most. It just becomes this fascinating follow up to something you would never think about.
Right. And that was one thing that I thought about too. I was thinking about it before we did the show, is the fact that when they were talking, you had this moment where you were thinking that in another time, in another place, if the original Karate Kid didn't happen in the way that it did, they would have been friends.
Oh yeah.
And I love that because it was just such a emphatic moment of how life, depending on how it turns out, how you interact with people, and what time, place, or space, can dictate how the future will pan out. And just seeing their interaction right there just shows you, especially with Johnny, and the fact that he was depicted for so long as pretty much the big bad bully, that he really wasn't that guy. That circumstances beyond his control really dictated the rest of his life. And in the same way that Daniel finally sees the light and understands exactly where he's coming from, it kind of has a big moment of a flip, where everything just kind of goes back to crap for him.
Well, yeah, because I mean, there's always this narrative desire to have a villain, which is why, when you're trying to motivate people, you always have to give them something to hate or whatever, right?
Right.
And like this is kind of the moment of clarity when they both realize the thing that's been motivating the person they hate is a human being.
Right.
And I think that's something that that's a life lesson right there. Not to plug.
I see what you did there.
I'm saying that. Yeah, so I don't know, but there's much else to say except shout out. I was gonna say shout out to Will Smith, executive producer.
Oh yeah.
I had to bring that up because, of course, he was with the EP on the remake film,
yeah,
so
yeah.
of course he is an EP on this too.
Man, I have to say, if there is one reason, like I know you can get, I believe, a 30-day trial for YouTube Red. Do it in a heartbeat. Like, this is an absolutely phenomenal series.
Yeah, there was one weird bit at the end of the series, but we'll wait and see what season 2 does.
Yeah, that was a very interesting twist. I did not expect that to happen.
I'm not entirely sure why it happened, although I have a couple theories. But
right. So
that's heavy spoilers. So
no, we can't get into that. I'm just really intrigued to see how, if season 2 happens, more than likely, I believe it is signed for a second season.
Yeah.
Yeah,
because it got like 5 million viewers within 24 hours.
Yeah, and it's worth
which
it too.
Which is really good for YouTube, right?
It's worthy of it too.
Well, to compare that, Lost in Space on Netflix was getting about 4 million. So it was doing better than a Netflix show.
And it's
with a decent amount of hype, because I mean, the Lost in Space remake got some hype. So
right.
We haven't talked about it yet. We may at some point. Who knows?
Yeah.
We'll try not to always do Netflix.
I know. It's getting the summertime though, so we might have to start wrapping up more Netflix anyway.
Oh yeah, but, we'll dip in there.
Yeah, but Cobra Kai, awesome series. First season, like I said, second season we're definitely talking about it. I'm so looking forward to second season, man. This is a unexpectedly great season because I was hopeful, but I just didn't know. Of course, you're coming into something as a sequel of something from 30 years ago. You can't really have the highest of expectations that everything's going to go right. Yet everything went right to me in this series so far.
Yeah, it's gonna say, Cobra. Those are great lizards.
Yeah, man. Cobra Kai, badass name for a dojo, man.
But I was gonna say, just speaking of great lizards. Did you not realize that's where I was going?
No, you got me. You caught me off guard that time. Great job. Great job.
So speaking of great lizards, yeah, and Netflix for that matter, the other one we're going to tackle is Godzilla: Planet of the Monsters, which is a very interesting thing to touch on. Okay, so I want to break this down.
Yeah.
So Godzilla: Planet of the Monsters is a official Godzilla canon film. Like, it's part of the new Shin Godzilla line, which, like, because there was the Shin Godzilla film, I think I want to say 2016. Yeah. I might double check that later, but and then it's now a trilogy of CG films that are following it, and the first one is Godzilla Part 1: Planet of the Monsters. And there's going to be 2 more. I think the second one just came out.
Yeah, it was May, I believe.
Yeah. So, and then the third one's going to be coming out later this year, so we'll probably try to touch on all 3 of them eventually. Like, it's not going to be so easy right now in the summer because we got a bunch of other big releases, but once we hit September, we'll probably catch up on the one that came out just this May, and then we'll probably touch on the other one. And more likely,
they got like a 2-month delay, too, so for May. So I don't think we're going to get it maybe to July or August for the second movie anyway.
Yeah. Exactly. Probably August sometime, I would imagine, because because at the moment I don't think there's too many movies in August we'll be covering. But so yeah, this was released worldwide on Netflix, but Toho distributed it in Japan. So I mean, it was a theatrical release, and it made a few million. Yeah, CGI film, and it's this attempt to really make Godzilla just a threat.
Yes,
like a big worldwide threat.
And we're definitely emphasizing the word worldwide because Godzilla and crew.
Well, yeah, it's funny too because like this is the 4th Godzilla series just in from Toho alone.
Right.
Because there's the original Showa series, which starts with the the original Godzilla, and goes up until the Terror of Mechagodzilla, which I think is like 75. But then they stopped that series, and then about 10 years later, they do Godzilla 1985, which I think is just Return of Godzilla.
Yeah, I believe so, yeah.
That's the Heisei... I'm doing this mostly by memory. I have vague reference notes, but I don't even think I have the names here. No, yeah, the Heisei series, which goes up until from 85 to 95. And then they did the Millennium series soon after the American film came out, and they were kind of mad about that.
Yeah, they had to try to make up for that loss.
But that didn't last very long because it wrapped up with Godzilla Final Wars. And then we got, another attempt at North American revival, which may actually be going somewhere, which is cool. But yeah, they decided to do Shin Godzilla in 2016. And then we got this, which originally came out in Japan in 2017, but we only got it on Netflix in January.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. We probably get like a 2.5, maybe 3 month delay before we get it in America too again. So
yeah. So the premise is, Godzilla is much more of a natural disaster than he perhaps has ever been before. Like even going back to the original when he was supposed to be an analogy for the atomic bomb.
Right.
Because they wanted to do a movie about the atomic bomb, but they couldn't depict the atomic bomb. So it's like, giant radioactive lizard, done.
Yeah, that works.
People, this is the thing. You have to understand, the original Godzilla is absolutely a classic art house film.
Yeah.
And there's so much like there's a lot of stupid campy Godzilla films, but that's just what Godzilla became.
Right. It's for people that maybe not get the analogy, just think about the Nightmare on Elm Street series. How it started off and what it became at the end.
That is absolutely true. Thank you for bringing up that analogy.
Yeah.
Couldn't have said it better myself. I wish I'd said it myself. My fragile ego is showing.
There you go.
So, okay. This movie is insane.
Yeah.
There's no better way to put it, because this is done by the guy who did Puella Magica Magica, or also known as or Magica, right?
Right, yeah.
Yeah, okay. And for those who aren't familiar with that particular anime series, it is one of the most insanely well done, just mind screw series I've ever seen out of anime. Like, if it wasn't for the fact that it came out in 2011, I would love to do an episode on that. Like at some point, maybe to do a retro piece or something. Talk about it.
A recommendation piece or something.
Absolutely. Something to do when we don't have as much as we'd like to talk about as normal. But anyway, so you're in for a trip when this guy's involved. And yeah, right off the bat, okay. So Godzilla's causing destruction, and then a bunch of aliens show up and are like, hey, why don't you join our religion?
Yeah.
And then they bust out Mechagodzilla and are like, Mechagodzilla, we'll use that to defeat them. All you have to do is join up. And then nothing happens.
Yes, they can't even get Mechagodzilla to work.
Yeah. It's such a weird development. I'm sure we'll get more into that, but yeah, so a good chunk of the plot is they have to abandon the Earth because Godzilla's become too much of a threat. Which is where the term Planet of Monsters kind of comes in. Because it's like they've had to leave Earth and then they have to come back to it years later. And, oh boy.
I love the fact that it's Planet of the Monsters. And it's like, are you sure? Like, is it just a name? No, it's not.
Ooh.
No.
No. But it's great because, there's so much stuff that happens. Humanity is just reduced to tatters. There's these two alien factions going around, and there's this religious caste thing going on.
Yeah.
And there's this genuine attempt to analyze Godzilla, figure out why he's seemingly invincible, how to stop him, and they actually give a pretty interesting explanation. Because this isn't really much of a spoiler. They talk about he's emitting basically an energy field, which is making him invincible.
Yeah, and that was
the
thing
biofield,
that really intrigued me about the entire premise of this series is this movie is the fact that it's first about how humanity has survived, and the fear of trying to go back to Earth and try to reclaim it. And then once they decide, okay, we have to do this, we have to stop Godzilla, it's this incredible thought process of how to take down this gigantic monster.
Yeah, it's really well thought out.
Yeah.
I mean, they give a decent sci-fi.
Well, there's some scientific flies going around there, and some real crazy things we see flying around later on.
Oh yeah, well there's hover bikes.
Yeah.
And if there's one thing Godzilla needed, it was hover bikes. Well, almost everything's improved with hover bikes.
Everything, yeah.
I would love Lord of the Rings with hover bikes. But yeah, so like they do this really interesting sci-fi explanation for Godzilla, and like what would happen if Godzilla did take over the world. What it would mean for the environment, everything like that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very fascinating what they do with this as a result. Like, it's one of the most creative yet grounded films I've seen in a while.
Yeah. And that's the thing that really makes it different from a lot of the other Godzilla movies, is the fact I think that if you go in thinking about what a Godzilla movie prototypically is, this isn't it. It's really about humanity trying to either decide what we need to do and how to handle it, and the effects of what Godzilla's actions are. Not the action itself, which I think was an incredible little twist, because now you actually care about the humans. It's not just about, oh, look at Godzilla tear up stuff.
Yeah. It's just crazy. I mean, because bear in mind, Shin Godzilla, they showed Godzilla getting nuked.
Yeah.
Right? Like, they showed genuine desperation. There was no easy way out. There was no oxygen destroyer or whatever the heck the thing was from the original movie that they use. Like, it's just, this is what happens. And it's like, oh man. And this film, it goes nuts to the wall, but it still does the same thing.
Right.
So you can see how this ties into Shin Godzilla very well. And it just, I don't... It's hard to talk about this movie because you can't give away too much.
Yeah, and especially when you start getting toward the end, which is, I mean, the points that I think a lot of people are, if you're watching it, are anticipating. But the fact of the matter is, yes, there is some battles. Yes, there are some moments where you're really thinking that either humanity has really made a big mistake, or they may be able to figure out how to take down Godzilla. But the fact of the matter is that, and we will reveal this because they tell you this, and we've already told you that it is 3 movies, it does leave you with something of a cliffhanger.
Yeah, it's the main thrust, the thrust of the movie is done.
Right.
But then there's a big twist, which sets up the cliffhanger and thus establishes why there's going to be more movies. Like, they don't do the Star Wars thing with A New Hope where they kind of, like, wrap it up, and then it's like, and then you have to kind of remind yourself, oh yeah, this is still out there. Right? Like, it's, oh no. Like, yeah, there's a new threat, it's here, and the setup at the end is amazing.
Oh yeah.
I can't, I wish I could explain the reference it made me think of, but, yeah, just simply put, this is a must-watch if you want to see something really different, yet familiar with a Godzilla movie.
Yeah, oh, definitely.
Because like, it really hits sci-fi anime tropes, and like a good half of the movie is not really about Godzilla.
No, not at all. And that's the nice little twist about it, is the fact that, like I said, they give you an emotional attachment to the actual human characters that have to defend themselves against the potential. Because, I mean, even though they're floating around, they've gotten away from Earth, who's to say, and they bring that up, that Godzilla won't be satisfied with just sitting on Earth.
Yeah. Well, you know what this makes me think of? It like, I wonder if one of the reasons they were able to nail this new generation of Godzilla so well is because of one of the inspirations they took, which because they said this Shin Godzilla series was inspired by the aftermath of the 2011 Fukushima disaster. So, like, I'm wondering if because they got to see such a disaster firsthand.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, we were talking earlier about how, Ralph Macchio's Real Emotions about the passing of Pat Morita were probably chanting through that scene. I'm wondering if some of the real sentiment that went through people's minds after the tsunami and earthquake disaster was channeling through these films.
Yeah, that really is. That makes up a good point. Like,
because
it feels, like you said, a lot of it does feel natural from the perspective of somebody that had experienced it.
Oh yeah, because like,
yeah,
even when you had the revival films, like really the original Godzilla, they didn't have. That was still, they were drawing on an incident from freaking 9 years previous, because it was 1954 that they did it.
right.
And as you got further and further away, even with the 1985 film, they were still kind of goofy because they had like the super,
Right.
because they had Super X. But like that film succeeded more because they were drawing on the Cold War stuff, which was very real at the time. And in this case, they're probably drawing on everything that happened with Fukushima.
A natural disaster.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm just wondering if that's where this all came from. Because if it is, I totally see it.
I could definitely see it.
Even,
yeah, it's definitely right there.
I was gonna say, even if I just pulled that out of my butt, I'm like, I don't think I got that out of nowhere.
Yeah, no, it makes a lot of sense, especially like you say, if you watch it and you see a lot of the incidents and actions throughout the destructive periods of the movie. There are things that are reminiscent of certain incidents, like a tsunami or an earthquake, that isn't just because of Godzilla or another monster attacking.
Mm-hmm.
That's a very good point.
And like I said, so the film is ultimately quite bleak.
Oh yeah,
but
yeah.
It doesn't shy away from still giving you hope.
Yeah.
I mean, it's part of the reason the cliffhanger exists, because if they didn't have the cliffhanger set up the way it is, like it might be like, because again, this is a series, so you can't just end with everyone happy if you're going to do a cliffhanger. So, but thankfully, the cliffhanger they do still has hope, because I've seen cliffhangers where it's just like, well, how screwed are they? Like, legitimately. So I don't. Do you have much else you want to add?
No, I think it was a really good movie. I'm really looking forward to seeing how it pans out and how it plays out with the next two.
Yeah, it was interesting because the studio that did this, I've not been the biggest fan of their animation, despite because I always just thought it looked jerky.
Yeah, it looks, it's so artificial looking, and it looks stiff and rigid, like you've just made it on a computer that's a little too outdated, but it still has a little bit of the equipment and technology that's made for stuff now.
Yeah.
Like you can see the lines, you can see, it's rough around the edges and stuff like that, yeah.
Well, this is the guy who did Knights of Sidonia, so I mean, which is really jerky.
Yeah.
Like, this looks better than Knights of Sidonia, but you can tell it's the same guy. But that said, especially the look of Godzilla looks amazing. It's definitely, like, this Shin Godzilla design they're going for is, I love it.
Yeah, it looks incredible.
Like, it's like, oh yeah, that's a monster.
Yeah, really.
But yeah, we still got 2 more films in the franchise, and I do have the name. I did call up the names.
Okay.
I don't know what it is about this. When there's a trilogy, they always seem to have at least one bad name.
Oh.
Well, because I'm gonna compare this to another trilogy in a second, but let me just read you off the other names. So we got Planet of the Monsters.
Okay.
Pretty solid name. And then we got the second one.
Makes sense.
The second one, which I'm going to tell you right now, I don't like. City on the Edge of Battle.
That's way too long.
Yeah, and because of it doesn't feel quite right to the English speakers. I'm like, eh.
Yeah.
But I love the third one, Godzilla, Eater of Stars. I'm like, all right, that just sounds epic.
See, that's what it ties into my idea of humanity being afraid of Godzilla moving from Earth.
Yeah.
That's perfect.
Oh, no, yeah, I'm all about it. But, this made me think of the Mobile Suit Zeta Gundam movies. Because there's a trilogy of Zeta Gundam movies called Mobile Suit Gundam: A New Translation, and they each have their own individual names, and the names get progressively worse. The first one is a pretty sweet name, Heirs to the Stars, because it's like a next generation type thing, and
right.
Like they're exploring space. I'm like, that's a sweet name. Second one, Lovers, because it's the movie where everyone falls in love.
Oh, that's sweet.
Yeah. And then the third one, Love is the Pulse of the Stars. That just sounds like a bad poetry night reading.
Yeah, that sounds like a subtitle for a book, one of those old romance books that you find at the grocery store.
This is what I'm saying. Like, I don't know what it is. It's like, that's just what these Godzilla titles made me think of. I just thought I'd bring that up because...
Now after you say that, now I'm thinking about a romance about Godzilla and somebody. I don't know.
There's a video I need to show you later.
Oh, my...
No, you will love it. All right, but on that note... I shouldn't plug it on the thing, but oh man, yeah. So I'm looking forward to seeing these other movies because
same here.
Yeah, like it's one of those things. Like, just if you're at all intrigued by Godzilla meeting anime tropes and going through some really bleak spiritual themes, definitely check it out. Because, like I said, there's so much imagination going on here. And they're not just trying to have fun. Because, well, I appreciate a Godzilla film that just tries to have fun. Like, Godzilla Final Wars is just, hey, let's have him fight the American Godzilla while, like, Limp Bizkit plays. I think that's what that was. Some kind of heavy music. No, this is more, there's some genuinely solid themes. Anime fans will love it. Probably a decent chunk of Godzilla fans who don't just want camp will love it.
Yeah.
So I think you're in for a good time. And on that note, I want to thank you for being with me through this, James.
Oh yeah, always.
You'll always be my Mr. Miyagi.
Oh, thank you. You'll always be my Kyler.
God damn it. KwinnPop apologizes to all Kylers one more time. I'm just gonna hate, like, we end this episode, I go off, and like an hour later I meet a Kyler, and I'm just like, I am so sorry.
You want to see the name tag, and you're like, oh, I'm so sorry, dude.
Yeah, I'm just gonna give him a hug. Tell him everything's gonna be okay. Man. Again, apologies to all Kylers. On that note, have yourselves a good